Come walk with me into one of the strangest and most beautiful corners of Minnesota. Over the next mile, we will follow a wild north woods, river down through a staircase of waterfalls, stand at the edge of a famous vanishing waterfall where half the river simply disappears, and trace a mystery that puzzled people for 100 years, all along the rugged coast of the greatest lake on Earth. First, where are we? This is Judge C.R. Magney State Park, on the far northern coast of Minnesota, the rugged strip of Lake Superior shoreline known as the North Shore. We are deep in Cook County, about 14 miles up the shore from the little town of Grand Marais, and not far from the Canadian border, near the very top of the United States. The river beside us is the Brule. In its final 8 miles, the Brule races through this park and drops around 800 feet on its way to the lake, and all that falling water carves a whole series of waterfalls and cascades. Standing here, you are surrounded on every side by the roar of white water tumbling over dark rock. Our trail follows the frothing white water upstream, and it passes waterfall after waterfall. First the lower falls, then the upper falls, each one pouring into a dark churning pool before the river gathers itself and throws itself over the next lip of stone. The whole path is a little over a mile, and it climbs steadily along the loud, rushing edge of the gorge. Look closely at the color of the water. It runs a deep tea brown, and where it churns into foam, it turns the color of root beer. That tint is completely natural. Upstream, the Brule drains great cedar and spruce bogs, and the tannins leaching from all those roots and fallen needles stain the water this rich amber, the signature of a true northern river. The rock the river cuts through is almost unimaginably old. Around 1.1 billion years ago, this continent tried to tear itself apart along a giant scar called the Mid-Continent Rift. For millions of years, lava poured out across this whole region, flow upon flow, hardening into thousands of feet of dark volcanic stone. That ancient rock is the bedrock of everything you see here. That old lava is what makes this place so dramatic. The Brule has sliced a deep, twisting gorge straight down into the hard volcanic rock, leaving steep walls of stone, with the river funneling through the gap below. Cedars cling to the rims with their roots gripping bare rock, and the trail hugs the edge, giving you one thundering overlook after another. The last great sculptor here was ice. During the most recent ice age, a vast lobe of glacial ice ground across this whole region, then melted back only about 10,000 years ago. The meltwater filled the enormous trough the ice had gouged out, and that flooded basin, brimming with cold, clear water, became the great lake waiting at the bottom of this river. Near the top of the trail, The path saves its hardest stretch for last. It drops down a long run of wooden and stone steps built into the steep side of the gorge, then bottoms out beside the river again. You can feel the mist rising and hear the roar building, because just ahead is the reason most people come all this way. And here it is, the Devil's Kettle. At this spot, the Brule slams into a mass of hard volcanic rock that splits the river cleanly in two. The eastern half drops about 50 feet down a normal, beautiful waterfall into the pool below. But the western half does something no other waterfall on this whole shore does. That western half pours straight down into a deep, dark pothole in the rock, a giant stone kettle, and then it is simply gone. Half of an entire river roars into that hole and vanishes underground, with no obvious place downstream where it comes back out. Stand at the railing, and you are watching thousands of gallons a minute disappear into solid rock. For a century, that vanishing act was one of the great riddles of the North Shore. Where does the water go? People threw in logs, ping-pong balls, even colored dye, and swore that nothing ever came out the other side. Wild theories spread that the water ran through a secret lava tube or a hidden cave, all the way to Lake Superior. The real answer turned out to be quieter and more elegant. In recent years, hydrologists measured the river just above the Kettle at about 123 cubic feet per second and just below it at about 121. The numbers matched. Almost no water is lost, which means the vanished half simply rejoins the river a short way downstream. The Kettle is carved into a hard volcanic rock called rhyolite. Instead of tunneling off to the lake, the water plunges into the pothole, forces its way through cracks and fractures deep in that rhyolite, and bubbles back up into the streambed just downstream. The mystery was never magic. It was simply water finding its way through broken stone out of sight. Because everything here is racing toward one place, Lake Superior. It is the largest freshwater lake on the planet by surface area, so vast it behaves less like a lake and more like an inland sea. The Ojibwe call it Gichigami, the Great Sea. Every drop of water in this gorge, the part that vanishes and the part that does not, is bound for that immense cold water just downstream. The forest around us belongs to the far north. White cedar, black spruce, balsam fir, birch, and aspen crowd right down to the water, their roots woven into the mossy rock. This is the southern edge of the great boreal woods that ring the top of the world, and here it spills down the hillsides of the North Shore all the way to the lake. In autumn, this place catches fire. The birch and aspen turn brilliant gold, the maples up on the ridge blaze orange and red, and all of it leans out over the dark, rushing water. The Brule River in fall color is one of the classic sights of the North Shore, and it is easy to see why people drive for hours just to stand right here. Long before any of these names appeared on a map, this was, and still remains, the homeland of the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe people. For centuries, they traveled this coast by birch bark canoe, gathered from its forests and waters, and knew this shore not as a scenic stop, but as the living center of their world. In 1854, the Treaty of La Pointe reshaped this whole coast. The Ojibwe ceded much of the land along the North Shore, and reservations, including nearby Grand Portage just up the road, were established. Yet the people kept their right to hunt, fish, and gather across these ceded lands, a right the bands still hold and exercise here today. So who was the judge this park is named for? Clarence Magney was a mayor of Duluth and later a justice of the Minnesota Supreme Court, but his real legacy is out here. He helped create 11 different state parks and scenic waysides along this shoreline. When people wanted to honor him, they gave his name to this wild river gorge. The path we are on connects to something much larger. The famous Superior hiking trail runs right through this park, tracing the ridgeline above Lake Superior for more than 300 miles. From this gorge, you could turn and walk for weeks, following the Great Lake through forest and over rock knobs, all the way toward the Canadian border. This ground has been protected for a long time. The Minnesota legislature first set it aside in 1957, back when it was still called Brule River State Park, and it was later renamed in the judge's honor and expanded upstream to take in the Devil's Kettle. What was once just a wild river crossing is now held in trust for whoever comes to walk it next. This is genuinely wild country. These North Woods are home to moose wading the beaver ponds, to black bears, to the ravens that ride the wind above the gorge, and to one of the last strongholds of the gray wolf in the lower 48 states. You may not see them, but as you walk this trail, know that they are out there all around you. Places like this do something quiet to a person. They take a whole day of worries and shrink it down to the size of a single leaf spinning on the water. The Brule has been pouring itself over these falls, and half of it slipping away into the rock for thousands of years, and it will keep doing exactly that long after we are gone. Thank you for walking Judge Magney and the Devil's Kettle with me. If this is the kind of place you love, subscribe and come along. There is a whole world of rivers, trails, and shorelines still ahead of us, and we are exploring it together. Until the next one, keep wandering and keep listening for the sound of falling water.